Awesome. Well, like always, guys, I really just love coming here on Wednesday nights, and I love being here with you all. And crazy day today for us. We were at school, just pretty much all the entire day doing trainings to get ready for the school year, and then we had tryouts after school, and then trying to rush this way, accommodate what we can to get this way as quickly as we can, and we made it here right before 7, but we made it here, so thankful for that. And tonight we're going to continue our series in Hebrews chapter 11. We're going to continue in the faith chapter. Today's message is titled, Faith to Let Go, Let God, and Let's Live. I laugh at that, and the reason why I titled that, I want to go through a little background on this really quick. I don't remember how long ago it was, but I remember one of my sisters using the phrase for humorous reasons, saying, let go and let God. And I hadn't heard that in the longest time. I don't know, and I know I can't figure out when you guys had said it. I can't remember when you had done that. But I remember there was one time, I want to say it was Adair that had said it. She told us, amongst us as a sibling, we were talking about a certain situation, and I think she just made a humorous thing about let go and let God. And I thought it was kind of funny because I hadn't heard that phrase in a while. And as I was going through the next section of Hebrews 11, where we left off on, I started to try to do a little bit of background on studies on, what are they talking about here? Because it's not a lot of information that we're going to go over today as far as what the verse gives us. And then I realized it connects us this way. And so really quick, I want to clarify something really quick, especially for people like, that watch online, or for when we hear something like this on a title, because the phrase "let go and let God" is a very old term. It's a term that it was actually used, it was coined in the 1800s, and it was used by Christians at the point in time who were actually being very lazy. And I'm not trying to justify laziness right now, but it was a phrase that they said, let go of whatever you have and let God take care of it. And to me, that doesn't set well, because it was them saying, you can do whatever you want in life, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, because God's going to take over everything for you. We know that there's some truth in that, but we also know that God does not expect us to be lazy Christians and to be people that just let whatever happen, and to just go with the flow. So I do want to clarify that my message tonight is going to be around this phrase, but it's going to be in a different way. It's going to take a different meaning towards it. It was also a song sang by this artist named Jack Cassidy, who I found really interesting, that when I was going through the lyrics, I thought it was going to be something a little bit more humorous, but it's actually a little bit more on a worship, list, you could say, so to speak. Although I only looked at the lyrics, I didn't hear the song. So I just thought that was pretty interesting as I'm going through the phrase, let go and let God. And I'm going to specifically talk about why I titled that, why I pushed it into this. So first, let's look at Hebrews chapter 11, verses 20 through 22. We're going to look at those three verses really quick, and then we're going to move into a different section in each part of our study tonight. We're going to go into different parts of the Bible in our studies tonight. I also told Christy yesterday that I feel like sometimes I need to move around a little bit more while I'm up here, so let me know if I do get off of the camera. I feel like I want to just walk around a little bit more at times and not just be stuck right here, but I'm going to try because the camera's right there. So if I don't, it's no big issue. Hebrews 11, verses 20, we're going to start right there really quick. And it says, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. 21, by faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning upon the top of his staff. And verse 22, by faith Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave commandment concerning his bones. Those three verses, when I first read them and when I've gone through Hebrews 11, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, one of my favorite verses in the Bible comes from Hebrews chapter 11. I really love Hebrews chapter 11, and I love going through the verse by verse, study right now that we're doing. And when I read these three verses, I thought, what can you get out of these things that don't have so much information, like what it tells us about Abraham or Sarah, what it tells us a little bit about Noah, what it tells us about different people from Hebrews that we are going to see coming forward. I thought to myself, what do these three verses mean, and what do they tell us? And so, again, as I went through a study, I realized it relates to our title for tonight. And so I just kind of want us to see a little bit more about what does it mean to let go, what does it mean to let God, and the last part, let's live. So we're going to go through the first point for tonight, and our first point is, I want us to see, let go of your control. Let go of your control. Control is defined in several different ways. The power to influence or to direct people's behavior or course of events. To exercise restraining or directing influence over. To control something or someone means you have the ability to change or manipulate actions at any given moment. Control is something I believe so many people search for. A force that they wish to obtain. And I think when you're looking at this definition, control is defined as us being able to just change something, whether it's for our benefit or for someone else's benefit, but it's being able to take something that's happening and make it go in a different direction. If there's a situation that we're involved in, if we can control it, we can make it work exactly the way we feel like it should go, whether it's for our benefit or for somebody else's benefit. Well, we know that control just means that you can manipulate something, you can change something at any given moment because you have the ability to do that. Why do we do this? I think it's because it makes life so much easier to go through. I mean, can you imagine having control of everything that goes on in your life? Can you guys imagine for just a moment right now, if you could have complete and utter control of everything that goes on in your entire life? I'm going to give some examples really quick. You woke up late today, so that's fine. Just control the time and rewind it. Or just change the time you have to go into work. Or change the time of your class. Or change the time of your trip. Or change the time of practice. Change the time of school. That's fine. Just make it work to your ability. I woke up late today. That's fine. Today, you know what? I'll tell the person that, I'm going to meet up with, going to change this already and make them okay with it. I'm going to make class different. Class was at 9:20. No, I deemed it today 9:40. I'm going to make it work that way, and it's going to work that way. Can you imagine just because you woke up late, you missed the alarm? Imagine being able to do something like that. You want your team to win. You have a team that you're rooting for in any professional sport or any school event. You have a team to win. Can you imagine being able to make sure that you control it to where they win every single time? Because you want it to work out for you that way. You want to feel good about it. You want the team to feel good. You want your team to show some type of, hype, and you want to be able to show that you guys are the best. So can you imagine having control of that? The weather, it's too hot outside. Can you imagine making it better, making it cooler? Making it just the right temperature for you because that's exactly how you feel. That type of control. Can you imagine having all that levels of control in anything that you do? Today, for example, as we're coming in late, imagine me being able to just zoom right through traffic without any consequences. I could just control myself going as fast as I wanted to, as quickly as I wanted to, just to get here because that's what I felt like doing. There are certain things that we wish that we can control every single time. We get pulled over by somebody. And for those of you like, I know Melinda who's going to start driving, just be very careful when you're out there driving because they will pull you over if you're going too fast. And sometimes you're going to tell them, oh, but you didn't get the other person because they were going faster. But, that sometimes happens because we were doing things we're not supposed to. We're going speeds we're not supposed to. But guess what? Why does that happen to us? Because we want control. We want to be able to say that we have control of every situation that we're in. That happens a lot to us. I've gotten pulled over several different times for several different reasons. And I can say, for one thing, no matter how much I believe I'm right or no matter how much, was going on, I know one thing is for sure. It's because I thought I had control of a situation that somebody else who was hired and put there in place to tell me, no, that can lead you out of control and something worse will happen if we don't stop you here. And that's a reality check for a lot of us in so many different ways. And I think that happens to us in so many ways. And so what am I trying to get at here? What am I trying to push for this sense of when we're talking about control? Well, how about Isaac? If you look at what's happening here with Isaac, in Genesis 25:19, let's go there really quick. In Genesis 25:19, we're going to see why he's mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11 and what this means. In Genesis chapter 25 and verse 19, it says, and there are generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian, of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And it says here, and when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. I'm going to go a little bit further down right here, and it says, in verse 27, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter and a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents. Verse 28 is where we hit home right here. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So in this section right here, the reason why he's mentioned here is because we can see that he wanted kids. He asked God to give him kids. God had blessed him with 2, but then he asked, why is it happening here in the situation that we're in? And God had given him a prophecy. God had given him a foretelling. He was going to tell him, because what's going to happen here is you're going to have 2 nations against each other for the rest of generations to come, for history to come. Because he says, because the older one is going to serve the younger one. What that meant to Isaac at the time was he was being told by God, the blessing is going to go to the younger one, not to the firstborn. And to them in that generation, that time, that's an insult. It goes to the older person. It goes to the firstborn. It goes to that person. And at this point in time, God is telling him the second one, the younger one, is going to receive the blessing over the older one. And so in this here, we see that Isaac is trying to figure out, when he hears this, I'm sure he was not too happy about this, but Isaac is doing, I think, what any other person will be told by God. At least in this point in time, he's acting human, and I'm sure he's thinking, well, I think I might have a say in that. Maybe he means something different. Maybe something else is going to happen. Let's fast forward to Genesis 27 and verse 33. Just a couple more chapters down over. If you look at Genesis 27, verse 33, It says here, and Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, who is it that hath taken venison and brought it to me? And I have eaten of it all before thou camest and have blessed him. In this here, I want us to focus. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly. In this point right here, we can see that what just happened, he had blessed Jacob and he didn't go to Esau. At that point in time, Isaac is about to realize something very, very interesting. My next point for this right here, for point number 1, is losing control. I want us to see this. Losing control is a blessing in disguise. Losing control is a blessing in disguise. If you look at the background of what happened here, it was Jacob who had disguised himself, and he was able to make himself look like Esau, and he went into Isaac's tent, and he was able to go in there and trick his father into blessing him instead of Esau. He made himself look like Esau. He put some hair, a lot more hair from an animal on his arm because his brother was a hairier person. His brother was somebody who was a lot more manly, who had a lot more manly features. So he put himself in that disguise, and he had his dad give him that blessing. Well, in this verse right here, what we see in verse 27, in verse 17, we're seeing here that it says that Isaac trembled exceedingly. When I read my studies, when I was going through the background upon this verse, I had noticed that someone had said this. They said, Isaac had just realized everything he was trying to fight against just happened. Everything he was trying to do had just been completely thrown away. He fought his entire life up from that time that his kids were born to this very moment in time to ensure that Esau would get that blessing. But then God's prophecy right here, God's foretelling, God's commandment came true right here, and he realized that's exactly what just happened. And I want us to see that losing control is a blessing in disguise. I want us to see that losing control sometimes leads to something better. Isaac had just realized here, wait a minute, God won, I lost. God was able to defeat me in this game that I was playing. And I want us to see this. Sometimes when us as people, we lose this sense of control so much that we start to panic. I don't know about you guys, but I think that sometimes we fight and fight and fight for control. We fight to have control of our lives. We fight to have control of any situation that we go through. And we don't fight for control for the good times. We have those good times. We're free to just enjoy those times. It's when something happens, when they change your schedule, when they change something about your day, when you plan everything exactly to a T, when you have this plan that just says exactly at this time, at this point in the day, I'm going to do this. And then in another hour from now, I have this planned out. Nobody should be able to stop me from doing that because that's what I feel like I need to do. And everything continues to move that way until one minor inconvenience comes in, and now we start to panic. If you guys have ever seen that movie, it's an older movie. It's a Pixar movie called A Bug's Life. When you watch that one, there's a scene at the very beginning of the movie. There's a scene at the very beginning of the movie where we'll talk about that one later, I guess. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie where the ants are trying to take all their food. And I never noticed this, but they say that when you interrupt a line of ants, if a line of ants are going through and you put something there, the ants start to scatter and freak out because they lost their line, they lost their control, they lost the way that they were going. And in the movie, a little leaf falls on the floor and the ant stops and he starts screaming, I'm lost, I'm lost. He goes, I don't know where to go. And one of the ants goes, come this way, we can go around. And he leads them back around. And they find a way to get back through to their line. And they're like, can we go around? Is that possible? Are we supposed to be doing this? This is not what we do. And he panics. And I think sometimes we get like that. We start going. We have this thought. We have this line. We start moving. And then one little thing falls in front of us as big as a leaf. And here we go. We lost control. We don't have it anymore. We're like, God, I got to get that back. You know my schedule. You know exactly the way I do things. You know if you want me to function exactly the way I can, it has to be like this. I need it to be like this. I need exactly everything in my life to be exactly as I planned. And why is that? There's nothing wrong with us having control of the things that make us, function. But there's a problem when we start to say that if we can't function within exactly how we want it, then we won't function at all. And that throws everything off. That throws our attitude off. That throws our spiritual life off. And why is that? Because we can be as close as we want to God in that exact moment. But the minute we get thrown off, that's when we start being rude to people. That's when we start telling people, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me until I've had my coffee. Don't talk to me until, until I feel good. Because guess what? Something got thrown off for me. So now I have to be different. Now I have to go through all these inconveniences. Isaac, I'm sure, was thinking the same thing at this very moment when he was thinking, this thing just threw off my entire plan about what blessing I was going to give. And then when he trembled exceedingly, he just realized how much more powerful God was in this moment because God said, no, it's exactly what I do, not what you want. If I have a plan for you, if I have a way for you, if I'm going to make you lose control, then guess what? You got to be okay with that. I want you to be okay with that. I want you to see exactly where I'm coming from. I want you to see that, you know, that I have this bigger plan for you than what you're imagining right now at this exact moment. I think sometimes, you know, it's crazy to think that sometimes we'll lose sleep over that control. We'll lose our appetite over control. We'll start to make ourselves fall, and we'll start to crumble our lives before us. We'll start to just, you know, develop, you know, different types of emotional imbalances. We'll start to get, you know, depressed or stressed and anxious, and our bodies tense up. And there goes our day, because a headache is just there for 12 hours out of the day, and we can't get rid of it, and we can't stop. And then we ever realize it's because you're fighting for control. It's because you're fighting for things that you have no way of controlling, the same way Isaac had no way of controlling what blessing that child was going to. God said to the younger, not to the older. And guess what? He fought that every single day until he realized he lost that fight. But I want us to realize that it's not about us trying to figure out, you know, woe is me in these situations. It's about realizing that losing control is a blessing. Losing control is a blessing. I think it sometimes feels good when people tell us, don't worry about that. I'm going to take care of that for you. I can figure that out for you. Sometimes that alleviates some of the stress that we get. Sometimes when I'm at work and someone tells us, but you don't got to worry about that. Oh, that's a big relief off of my shoulders for sure, because that's one thing that I don't have to worry about. And I think God is trying to give us that type of relaxation. It's not that he wants us to be lazy. It's just that he wants us to say the things that you're trying to control, that you have no control over, that's okay. Give them to me. I control them. I control them. In John, he says that you're going to have tribulations, but be of good cheer, be happy, be liveful, be blessed, because guess what? I overcame the world. He doesn't say his disciples overcame the world. He doesn't say that the 12 of them did it. He doesn't say that there's a person coming in the future that's going to give that. He doesn't say it's going to be the Holy Spirit at some point that's going to give you that. But he says, it's me. I overcame the world. I'm God. I'm the person that you should be looking for and looking to find that sense of relief. When we have somebody come and tell us, don't worry, I'll take care of that for you, it should bring us a sense of relief at times when somebody is doing something for us. In the right way, of course, in the right situation. How much more so should we be free to think that God has control of the things that we have no way of controlling. The things that just come in out of nowhere. I felt really horrible because on Monday when we were driving to Harvest, we were planning to be there on Monday, and it was pretty much the only day that I knew that we could be there. So we're driving to Harvest, we're on their way, but throughout the day on Monday, I started getting really, really sick. I felt really sick from my body, and I couldn't get over it. And as we were driving closer and closer towards Edinburgh, I kept telling my wife, I just don't feel well. And she's like, then you got to get this taken care of. So I go and I drop her off, and you know, she's representing our church along with you all at that point in time, only for me to have to go down the street or a couple of blocks down the road and have to go to the doctor and have this most uncomfortable experience of my lifetime. Nothing terrible about my health, just more about the inconvenience of being there for so many hours, only to see somebody for a couple of minutes who could not give me any type of, results, or could not give me any type of, security in this. And thank the Lord that, a couple of days later, yesterday and today, I've been feeling a whole than what I was at that point. But just seeing this whole situation, I had no control over. And here I am complaining to my wife, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be at the doctor. I'd rather be over there. You know what? I don't feel well. And then I realized I have no control over what's going on right now with myself. How can I heal myself? How am I going to go and tell myself to get better just like that? It doesn't happen. I had to realize at that point when I was sitting there for like 3 hours at that doctor's office to tell myself, you know what? Pray. You know what? Talk to God. Let him know you have control, I don't. I can't do this right now without you taking the reins in this situation. I can't go to the back of the doctor's office and tell him, see me here right now. I only want to be here for 30 minutes at the most. Heal me, give me something exactly to fix me right now, and that way I can be on my way and go back to exactly what I wanted to do. God had other plans for me at that time, and I needed to be okay with that. And I needed to learn something from that, whatever he wanted me to experience at that point in time. And I want us to say that because we don't control the future. Losing control is not a blessing. It is a blessing. Losing control is a blessing. It's not a punishment. God is not trying to punish us when we lose control. God is not trying to tell us, no, I'm going to punish you because, I want you to see this, I want you to see that. No, he's trying to give us a blessing. He's trying to show us it's something better for us when we don't have that sense of control. I think it's just because Isaac had to have this certain type of faith, because he realized no matter what happened in the situation now, no matter what he was trying to do, when he trembled exceedingly, he realized God was in control, not him. How many of us can realize that in many situations that we've been in before, where we realize, or you can think back right now, wait a second, I was never in control, it was God. I was never, ever in full control of that situation. God had made himself apparent in that situation. Because sometimes we have this attitude of we want to fight back, we want to fight, we want to push, we want to wrestle with God in this way, and only for us to realize God says, no, you have no control. I'm the one that has it. Has God tried to show you a path to take, but you're fighting it because it wasn't part of your controlled experiment? Our lust for control can consume us. It leads us to do so many things. We start out by thinking it's okay. We start out by thinking we're fine. I need control because I know exactly what I'm doing. And there's nothing wrong with living our lives a certain way, where we know that, no, this schedule works better for me, and this vehicle works better for me, and this lifestyle works better for me, and maybe I can commit time in the morning for you, or maybe in the evening. Nothing wrong with that. But again, it's when we start to realize when we don't have control of those things that we start to spiral down and down because we're throwing a fit about just not having it our way. Like the BK commercial, have it your way. This is not the way it works. This is not the way life goes. BK is the only place I guess you can have it your way, because I can tell you right now in my life, I don't get to have it my way all the time. I don't get to make it exactly the way I want to. I don't get to make it exactly the way I want to control these things. I don't get to do everything exactly the way I want to. But I just want us to realize that losing control is a blessing. You can sometimes see it right away. But believe me, down the road, further on, days, hours, weeks, months, years, you're going to see that losing control was not for you to be punished by God, but a blessing given to you. Enjoy that blessing. Don't be afraid to let go of your control. Second point, let God give you dependence. So we said right here, faith to let go, let God. Well, let God give you dependence. In verse 21, Jacob had faith to bless both sons of Joseph, and says that he leaned on the top of his staff. To lean on something. To lean on something is to cause something to rest against. If you lean on something or someone, you're trusting that they will be able to provide some type of support. All right? Hebrews 11:21 says that he worshiped and he leaned on his staff. If we go back to Hebrews chapter 11, Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 21, it says here, by faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning upon the top of his staff. The most important part we're focusing on right now in this verse is to see where it says, and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff. This is, I think, something that's really, really important. And I'm going to try to move this as quickly as I can right now for the sake of time, but I really want us to get a hold of this portion right here. I think this part hit me more than anything else when I was going through this message. What does it mean? What does this mean, and how does it relate to us gaining dependence from God when it says that he worshipped and he was leaning upon his staff? Let's look back at Genesis 32:24 really quick as we go into this point. Genesis 32. In verse 24 it says, and Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of day. And later on it says here in verse 25, and when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, and he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For a prince hath thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. So in this part right here, what are we talking about? My next point, gaining dependence. So I want you to gain dependence to go a full 12 rounds. All right, gain dependence to go a full 12 rounds. I don't know if you guys know any type of, I think, boxing or fighting references, but to be able to go a full round with somebody like that, I mean, you're sparring with them and you're being able to go back and forth and challenge that person. To go that many rounds is a long, long-lasting match. Let's break this down really quick to see what this means. We know that we need to let go of control, but now we need to let God give us dependence. For a good portion of Jacob's life, he lived a very self-reliant and independent life. For a big portion of his life, he was able to say, oh, I can take care of that. Don't worry about that. I can do it. He was a very independent person, you could say, in getting things that he wanted to go his way. How many of us are like that? I mean, it's not a bad thing to be an independent person or to say, if you want things done a certain way, you just do them yourself. That's not a bad attitude to have at times. All right? But here's the big issue. And does it start to creep into your spiritual life? Does it start to move into your spiritual life? Does it start to push you to a point to where now you can do things even beyond the physical here, but now be able to just, give yourself a sense of spiritual calmness? All right? Are you self-reliant on your control for everything? Now, this happened to Jacob, and in verse 24 it says that a man came to wrestle with him. All right, so this does not mean that Jacob actually wrestled a man. It means that a man wrestled with Jacob. So Jacob was not out there looking to pick a fight. Jacob was out there by himself, and here comes somebody out of nowhere, and they start fighting. And I'm pretty sure he started by this. We don't know what that fight looked like. We don't know if it was a full-on glove-on-glove, let me start this boxing match really quick, or if it was just this kind of like struggle where they both went back and forth, if it was a spiritual struggle, or if it was a verbal struggle, or if it was them. But I know that the way it describes it, as we know that it was a lot more physical because they were hitting each other, going at it with each other, trying to see who was going to win over the other person. All right, and it says in verse 25 that it lasted until the morning, and God had to finally put a stop to it, that when he touched his side, right here, his joint came out, and yet he still held on to him. Tells us from there that Jacob's fight lasted the whole night, tells us this sometimes, that our own flesh wants and is ready to go 12 rounds with God. Sometimes, are we ready to go 12 rounds with God? Because Jacob was at this point. The fight came to him. God came out of nowhere. God came to him and started wrestling with him. But sometimes it tells you this. Sometimes we're so strong in our way, we're so strong in our flesh, that we're able to last that long with God spiritually. Not physically like the way it's happening here. I know that in this physical sense, they say that it was just for God to prove a point with Jacob because he could have easily ended this fight at any point he wanted to. But it proved to us something. Jacob's strength in himself, Jacob's stubbornness, his ability to say that I can do this got to him so much that he lasted the entire night with this person, with God. Our flesh does that sometimes. Sometimes we're so stubborn, we're so stuck, we're so adamant about something that we can let it last years. We can let it last a lifetime. We can push ourselves to the point where we can fight with God over and over again, and we feel like we're winning this fight, where we feel like we're able to handle ourselves in this fight, where we can tell God, no, you're wrong, I'm right. That person should not have done that to me. That person should not have said that to me. That person has no way of talking to me that way. That person has no right to take that from me. That person has no right to step into where I'm at. That person has no reason to come into my space. That thing has no reason to be here with me right now. There's no reason, Lord, why that's happening. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what's happening in the here and now. Sounds very strong, but this is what Jacob is fighting, that he's got this self-reliant attitude. And it's not until that, see here, that it says that when Jacob held on to this man, even after he got hit, even after he got hit on the side, or that God had touched his side to dislocate that joint, that he even still held on to him. He was still pushing for it. Now, here's where the turn of events happens. Here's where this is where it gets interesting that I had read. When God had wrestled with him, God was trying to get this attitude out of him. Sometimes God's going to do that for us. We're not looking to pick a fight sometimes with God, but God is looking to come at us and tell us, hey, what are you doing? Hey, stop exactly where you're at right now and look at me, and you need to settle down. It's like the person that says that you need to be put in check. It's like the person that says that, hey, wait a minute, look at yourself, reflect at yourself. Stop right here, right now, and look at exactly how you're acting. And God had to do that to Jacob. And here's where it gets really, really interesting. When Jacob is holding on to him, when you go back to the verse, and it tells us here, in verse where it says 26, and he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. Here's the part right here that I'm trying to get at. How do we let God give us his dependence? Because in this point in time, he was on his knees. He was on the floor holding on to this person. He was here holding on to God. And God said, you got to let me go right here, right now, because the day comes. Here it is. I'm leaving now. And now he realized that when he stopped this right here, when he had touched him on the side, Jacob realized, oh, wait a minute. I did something I wasn't supposed to. I'm fighting with something a little bit stronger than a man. I think I'm with God himself. And when he told him, you need to stop now, I'm leaving, Jacob was brought to his knees, and he told him, I need you to bless me. I need this from you. See, Jacob had just come to his knees. Jacob was on the floor, and he realized, he told God at this point, I have nothing. I'm left to nothing. I'm left to this point where I am absolutely broke. But the only thing that'll help me fix myself from here on out is to just hear you say, bless me. That you give me the blessing. He lived his entire life self-reliant on himself, getting away with exactly what he wanted to do, doing exactly everything he wanted to, and being able to move through life this way until God had to check him here. And now he tells God, okay, you win. I can't do this. I need you to just bless me. I need you to be here with me. I need you to be my God now. Jacob lived a life where you couldn't really see God as being the God of his life, the God of his fathers, the God of Isaac, the God of Abraham. Now he realized at this point in time, I need to claim you as mine, because I have nothing else left in my life. Sometimes God brings us to our knees that way. Sometimes God puts us in that position where we go, I have nothing left but you. I've been so stubborn. I've been so stuck. I've been so caught up in my world. I've been so caught up in everything I want. I've been caught up in everything I want to do. I've been caught up in my pursuit for happiness. I've been caught up in my pursuit for what I feel like is great. I've been caught up in everything for me. That when God finally comes to put us in line, when God finally does it, and we're so strong in our flesh, I want you to realize this, that he's going to go all the way he can with us to finally show us, no. I need you to rely on me. I need you to be with me. That's what this whole thing's about. That's what that's what God's trying to give us a sense of here. Is let go of that control, to gain dependence, to depend on him. Jacob never depended on him until this moment in time when Jacob finally realized, I can't win. I can't go the 12 rounds. I don't have dependence in you. I don't have you in my life the way I should have, the way my dad had it, the way my grandfather had you. I need you now in this moment in time. I need you here to show me this. And in Hebrews 11:21, when we see Jacob now blessing Joseph's two sons, and we see that it says he worshiped and he leaned on the top of his staff. What that means to us now is now he really leaned upon God, because he knew exactly when he held his staff, from this moment on, he could never walk the same way. From this moment on, he could never be the same person he was. He needed that staff to lean on every single time. And guess what? Every time he leaned on that staff, it was him leaning on God. Because he reflected on this moment in Pino. He reflected on this moment when he realized he met God, went 12 rounds with him, and said, I can't lean on myself. There's nothing to lean on. I need to lean on you. I need to lean on God. I need him in my life. I need you to take over me. I need you to lead me exactly where you want me to go. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to hear that it says he worshiped. He was exceedingly glad, to reflect on the moment when he leans on his staff. It's a reminder that he's leaning on God. We need to learn how to let go of our control. We need to learn how to let God give us dependence. And lastly, as we begin to close very quickly, our third point, let's live to be a witness. Let's live to be a witness. Hebrews 11:22, we're going to close up right here. Hebrews 11:22. This last part of our study. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave commandment concerning his bones. So this part always had me just was so trivia to me. This part right here was just so like, I don't understand what this means. And then I realized as I went into more and more discussions about this, when I went into more in-depth analysis about this, it just means that Joseph is known throughout Scripture as being a person who has found favor with man and God. Joseph is known as somebody who has done so many right things, even when things went wrong for him. But why is he mentioned in Hebrews 11:21 as giving commandment over his bones? Because he was a witness. Because he was a witness for history to come. He was a witness for people to see for time to come. All right? In Genesis 50:24, it says that God had promised to bring his people home. Genesis 50:24, we can go there very quickly, just to see exactly what he's talking about. In Genesis 50, verse 24, the last book of Genesis, in verse 24, it says, and Joseph said unto his brethren, I die, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land unto the land which he sware to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. At this point in time, what Joseph is trying to say is, I will not be buried here in Egypt. I'm going to be buried at home. We're going to go home. God has promised us a land. I promise you, God will fulfill that promise. God will bring someone to take us out of here and to take us home. So he said, don't bury me in Egypt. You're going to get a chance to bury me when we go home. You're going to get a chance to bury me when we go home. Let's live to be a witness. Joseph lived to be a witness. Even after he died, Joseph was a witness to God's promise. Joseph was a witness to exactly what God had planned for them. Joseph could have easily said, no, just bury me here. Just leave me here. You guys, you have a prophecy coming your way. No, he said, wait, I want to show you something. My coffin will be there. The exact coffin that you see me lying in. Anytime you walk by it, anytime you see it, anytime you just, happen to glance at it, it's a reminder of God's promise. It's a reminder that Joseph was a witness for time and time to come, that he said, don't worry, God's promise will be fulfilled. You will be given the land that God has promised us unto our fathers and our grandfathers and theirs. Joseph was trying to be a witness for many, many people to come. I want to challenge us tonight to be that same type of witness for people. I want to challenge us to say, not only do we lose control, gain dependence from God, but we can also live from this point on to be a witness for other people to see. We can live to be a witness for other people. As we begin to close, and as I begin to tell you guys that I want you to challenge yourself from this moment on, for this week, to try to be a witness, to try to lose that sense of control that we so hold on to gain dependence from God. I want us to see this right now in this perspective, and I think that this could not have gone any better than it did exactly right now in this moment. Earlier today, when we were out of work and we were finishing up our work day, we had a very strong conversation with our coworker who Christy had mentioned earlier. And the situation doesn't look very great. The situation does not look very hopeful. And the situation is kind of, depressing. It is a very, very sad thing to think about, what's happening to our friend, what's happening to her life, and what's happening to her mother's life. There's no denying that. But I think the one thing that we saw today, the one thing that I was able to see today was after the conversation we had with her, I saw Christy get up and she went to the room and I realized, there's something happening in there for sure. Conversation after conversation went through, and after the conversation was done, Christy came out and said she's received Christ as her Savior. I had the ability to go in there and tell her, I know this thing doesn't look right. I know this thing is completely out of your control. I know that this thing, you can't fix it. If you could heal your mom with a touch, I promise you, I know you would. But that's not our reality. Our reality is that we're faced with certain circumstances that we don't know why they're happening, but they're here. And Christy in that moment was trying to tell her, let me be a witness to you to show you the goodness of God, that you can know for sure that on this side of eternity, there's pain, but on the other side, there's hope. On the other side, Christ is there. And that's what this is all about. This is exactly what we're talking about. Jesus Christ, from this side to this side, from moving on from this side of eternity to moving on to something bigger and better than what we have here. I hate being sick, but guess what? I know that one day when I go to heaven, no more sickness. I know for sure that our coworker, our friend, and her mother know exactly what pain is. But what Christy told them today was, I can guarantee you one day it won't be there anymore. It's going to be gone. And at that moment in time, I just realized I was preparing for this message, how much bigger are these situations than us? How much bigger is this hope that God has given us than us? We were getting ready to move on to tryouts. We were getting ready to move on with our day. We were getting ready to come to church. And then I realized at this point when Christy had told me exactly what happened, I told myself, wait a second. This is exactly what he's trying to talk to us about. Live to be a witness. How do we do that in this final part? We lose control. Get rid of it. Realize it's a blessing to not have control that God does. Gain that dependence from God. You can go full 12 rounds with God. You need to gain that dependence. And then the very last thing that I want to say, be that witness to somebody out there who needs it. Be a witness to that person, to that one person, even if it's one person. Be that witness to that one person who you can show them exactly who God is. Lead them to Christ and let them know that they can have hope for the next day. They can have hope for tomorrow. Because even if tomorrow doesn't come, we're with God in eternity forever and ever. Can we have that moment in time right now to lose control? To let go of ourselves for just a moment, to gain dependence on God, to let Him take over, and finally for us to be able to see past ourselves and be a witness for somebody in today. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to thank you for this moment. I want to thank you, Lord, for this Wednesday night. And I want to thank you for anyone who gets a chance to watch online and for anybody who's hearing right now at this point in time, dear Lord. And Lord, I know it's not easy to lose control. I know exactly what it means to just try and struggle with control, Lord. But I want to pray right now, dear Lord, if somebody has the attitude of, I just can't, I need to, I have to, I'm pushing myself every single day to have more and more control. Lord, I want to pray for that person right now to find a spirit, Lord, the way Isaac realized he had no more control. I want us to find a spirit that says, instead, you know what, I'm going to let go of my control. I'm going to let God, let you give me dependence the way Jacob realized he needed that dependence, when he realized he could push it no more. And finally, Lord, that we can live to be a witness the way Joseph was, even after he was gone, even after he left, to be a witness to others to show your promises. If there's anyone here right now struggling with this sense of control, struggling with gaining dependence, struggling to be a witness, I would pray right now, Lord, that we start with ourselves. We start by analyzing ourselves and realizing, Lord, it's about you, not about us. It's about you, Lord, and I have to give death to myself. I have to move away from myself so others can see you. I must move out of the way so people can see your light. Lord, if there's anyone struggling with that tonight, I pray that they would see that, Lord. And if there's anyone here, dear Lord, who can be that witness, I would pray for that, dear Lord. And I want to thank you for Christy and myself's friend, dear Lord, who was able to see that today, dear Lord, and that we were able to give just that one moment to that one person to see that sense of reality, to see glory, dear Lord. Now I want to pray for everyone else to be able to do the same. Let us be that witness for others. Let us be that Christian you want us to see, like in Hebrews 11. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.